Welcome to yet another edition of the brand called You. Today, I have someone who has achieved a lot in the fintech space and has now moved to agriculture. Amit Sinha, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Amit is the co-founder of Akshamaala Solutions, which is an agricultural technology company. He's the former chief operating officer and board member of Paytm. Amit is from IIM Calcutta, IT Dhana, and he's a business builder. So, Amit, tell me a little bit about your early work.
Sir, I actually started my career with Infosys post my BTech and worked for a year in mainframe. But even in 2000, I did some development work in mainframe, which was quite rare at that point of time. Then moved to one IIM Cal. Then spent the early years in consulting across PricewaterhouseCoopers and Keen Consulting at that point of time, and worked across India, US, with financial services, manufacturing firms, government sector quite a lot, and did some amazing projects. One of the very interesting projects was a portal in 2004 for Ardh
Okay.
and that was rated as one of the very unique projects in global PwC fraternity. And from there, then I moved to Airtel for a year. And then the sort of the startup journey started for me when I joined in 197, the parent company of Paytm today, way back in 2007.
Okay.
So we were only 100 people at that point of time, so quite early.
Yeah.
And but had a great first stint of almost 3 years from 2007 to 2010. Worked across multiple businesses, raised funds. That was the content mobile value-added services business at that point of time. Had a very great learning. During that time, I remember we grew from 100 people to almost 700, 800 people in the span of 3 years, and grew from, I think, 10 crores of revenue to almost 300 crores within 3 years. So that was again a huge growth at that point of time. Then went ahead to start the company that I co-founded, Akshamaala, way back in 2010.
Okay. So before we go to Akshamaala, let's talk about Paytm.
Sure.
In the payment space, Paytm is by far
the leader.
The 800-pound gorilla, if I can say so.
Yeah.
But over the years, and you said you've been there since 2007, how have you seen the payments business evolving?
So payments actually we got into around 2010. Earlier also it was more about the payment on the mobile platform, the telco-based payment mechanism and stuff. 2011 is when the Paytm. 2010 actually when Paytm really started getting into fintech and this thing. So. One bet I think very early with Vijay had taken, the founder of Paytm, that we were focused on using payments, consumer payments, which was very unique, which nobody else did. So I remember a lot of people talking about PPI wallets even at that point of time. We were perhaps the 40th plus, 42nd player to get a PPI license.
Correct.
But nobody had looked at payments from a consumer payment perspective. I think that is where Paytm did a really big difference, that we went into the consumer payment side of the thing.
Okay.
And then one thing led to another. There was a whole lot of innovations that happened, the QR code, the merchant payment, and initially it started off more as the whole demonetization gave a lot of growth to the payment services itself. But obviously the whole idea was that we were very focused on payment, the digital payment space, and creating that whole space the way we see it today. Way back in early in that decade, there was hardly anybody doing the way we were doing, and that was and one great belief that we always had was the payment is the rails on which other digital businesses are built.
Correct.
So with payment as the rails, we can get a lot of consumer insights, which would then help us build the other sort of aspects of the business.
Very interesting. So over the years, India is moving gradually towards a cashless economy.
Yeah.
I don't know if the right word is gradually or moving fast.
Yeah.
But we still remain a predominantly cash economy.
Yeah.
How do you see this economy changing over the next, say, for 4 or 5 years?
The pace I think will be growing faster if like of the whole change towards a digital economy. And while cash is still prevalent today, but today when I go even to the deepest of the rural areas, people are using digital payment methods.
Correct.
It's no more a situation where people don't know it, and that's why the more and it's a common the supply side and the demand side challenge. The more supply side has been created and will be created, more people will keep moving towards the digital payment. And this is one thing which is not only irreversible, the pace is 100% going to go more and more aggressive in terms of the movement. So a lot of the transactions today, every remote area has all sorts of digital services available, and all of them require a digital payment. So
Correct.
people are more and more moving. I was surprised. Small towns like Shahjahanpur has Swiggy, has Zomato, and people doing digital payments and getting stuff at home. We won't have seen it a few years back,
Correct.
but today all of that is there.
Correct.
So I think the pace at which it is set to grow further, and there will be a significant chunk which will be like significantly digital as a payment.
Very interesting. So, I'll tell you an interesting story. Soon after demonetization happened, I was playing golf, and someone I was playing with didn't have 500 rupees to give to the caddy.
Yeah.
And the caddy immediately said, "Sir, Paytm kar do."
Yeah,
Right?
that's I think that it has literally become a verb today. So that's the strength of the brand.
Absolutely.
And what Paytm has built.
Well, congratulations on what all of you built. Fantastic. My last question to you on Paytm before I move to Akshamaala. This is the age of millennials who are not only much more technologically competent, but are also very aware of the environment, of the right way to do things, etc. How are millennials changing the payments business?
I would say, as you rightly said, they're very aware. So in a way, they're always looking for options to do more things. And from that perspective, there is a constant innovation journey that one has to keep on doing, to keep following and understanding what the
Correct.
newer set of consumers need and keep delivering that. What we did maybe a few years back is not relevant today. And that is what perhaps the biggest change that technology has brought in. The shelf life of any stuff that we are doing is very, very limited. To keep innovating and keep bringing out new things to ensure that we keep the millennials and everybody else on the platform.
So, Amit, let's move to Akshamaala, your new baby.
Yeah.
Tell me about the business.
So actually, Akshamaala has a history, and while you were saying Paytm, the history between Akshamaala and, from my perspective, between Akshamaala and what we are doing at Paytm has sort of intertwined. I actually started in 2010, went back to Paytm in 2014. Okay, was there in between to the growth phase and all, and in June last year is when I came back to this business, and we started even in 2010 as an edtech company. Forget about egg and tech. Even tech was not enough hot at that point of time.
Correct.
So, but today it's a different scenario. Today, I think at this juncture, agriculture is ripe for a lot of technology intervention.
Yeah.
And as I'm very proud, I feel very proud when I go to the rural areas to see that 3 years back, the technology infrastructure, the telecom infrastructure, the financial services infrastructure was not there on which we could bring more evolved solutions, which is what exists today. I don't have to reinvent and create a lot of infrastructure to give a service to a farmer today.
Correct.
And that is where I think right now we are primed very well.
Okay.
And this is a company which I co-founded with my partner Ashok. And Ashok launched a service called Unnati some 3 years back, which is what we are focusing on today. So with Unnati, what we are trying to do is to bring all the agri ecosystem players onto a single platform, on a digital platform, to enable that the best of the services are offered in a transparent and trusted manner to the farmers.
Okay.
So that is the key part, because today the biggest challenge that a farmer faces in anything that he does is the lack of information, and by nature, agri is a very risky
Correct.
proposition.
Correct.
Like for a farmer, it's a very risky proposition. You don't know what will happen with the weather. You don't know how your rates will vary after the production has happened.
True.
So there's a lot of
And it's perishable.
and it's perishable. So there's a lot of benefit in bringing in predictability to what the farmer is doing. Not only for the farmer. If farmer is doing something predictable, then everybody in the value chain, right from the agri input provider, a fertilizer or a pesticide manufacturer, to somebody who is using that farmer purchase to process and create something, everybody gets a benefit out of it. And that is what we are aiming by ensuring that farmer does his farming in a very predictable way, in a way that he gets advanced alerts and information on what needs to be done. And that is where we are ensuring that every ecosystem player comes onto the platform and does it in a digital way.
Very interesting. So tell me, what does Akshamaala mean?
Akshamaala is just like it's just like Wordmala is for the written word. Akshamaala is for the spoken word. So way back in 2010 when we started this company, we expected to reach out to farmers in every language of their own choice and with the relevant communication. So that was the genesis of it.
And that's how Unnati of
That's how, and Unnati today, when we evolved into Unnati, so Akshamaala was initially we did a lot of farmer engagement services on behalf of enterprises. Today with Unnati, we are reaching out directly to the farmers. So the idea is that we are going to help farmers in improving their quality and way of farming and ensure that he becomes an Unnat farmer. So that is where the whole Unnati thing comes in.
So, Amit, from a very, very successful fintech, which was a B2C model, to hopefully a very successful ag tech, where again you're going B2C, if I can use.
Yeah.
What are some of the synergies between these two businesses? Because you are the common individual in both.
To both. So I think so few things which I always remember, we really felt a Paytm like the digital services would solve was always the focus on the outside of the metro world. That was the thing in Paytm also, because people in cities have all the options. Not to say that the service is not for them, but the real value, I think the real need of financial services when you go lower down in the value chain, right from a class of people to the location of people.
Correct.
That is where the real challenge of access starts. So access is a big challenge. In fact, personally, I grew up in a very small place. It was a power project. My dad was an engineer, so money was not an issue, but the access to things were a challenge.
Correct.
So we would not get a cold drink in the unless until we go to a district headquarters, which is 50 kilometers away, which means that you get only once in maybe 4 or 5 months to enjoy a cold drink also. So that somehow left an impression on my mind that a lot of people in this country might have the money and the wherewithal to do things, or they might need a lot of things. But if we are not finding the right way to provide an access to those services, that will not work. And that is the thing that we focused on in Paytm Mall, and perhaps that is where the current services are also building up in agriculture. The challenge is about accessing the relevant services. So if I go to an MP, there is a village which might be 50 kilometers away from the headquarters. And that place, the farmer will find it always difficult. He can go only once or twice within a span of 3 months to the city to buy something, and then he is at the mercy of whatever he gets, he goes home. So that versus if I am able to provide him a choice through a digital platform whose cost of reaching the last mile is much, much lesser than a traditional way of doing, then I would have made an impact. And that is where perhaps I think there is a commonality in what we are doing today. At the end of the day, we are trying to solve the access challenges of the farmer. So it is more focused on vertical, while with Paytm we were trying to solve the financial services access challenge for a large set of people.
So my last question to you on agriculture. You spend a lot of time in the business. I'm sure you've interacted with hundreds and thousands of farmers.
Yeah.
What are the 3 things that are a problem for agriculture in India today?
So first it starts with identifying what to do in his farm. So while nobody would change their current set of crops they're doing. There is a gradual change that will happen, but not at one go. But more importantly, even in their traditional crops, there are very minor information and knowledge which will help them improve. So, for example, there is a two-week delay in application, say, of an insecticide or a pesticide, and your whole crop may go waste. Now, that is the information and support that a farmer lacks, and what to do right at that. So that is the genesis of a lot of problems that come into his farming life cycle. And thankfully, farming, while it's a very risky proposition, it's also very predictable in terms of what you want to should do.
Correct.
If you have the right information. Second, I think the key problem is about finding the right market and where to sell. And not only where to sell, as in, because the agriculture is a multi-dimensional problem of many to many. So there are millions of farmers producing for millions of consumers, but there is a lot of N cross M challenge in between that you have to mix and match. So there is a lot of this thing. Third is the level of value addition that we can push to the farm gate, which is where a lot of there's a large chain which makes it very inefficient. So these three things, I think, are the biggest challenges which a farmer faces, and he has been facing this over a long period of time, and then this is something which, with the digital thing, we should be able to solve, because then a cost of reaching a 2-acre farmer is not significant enough for me to prevent giving him the right services.
Correct. Wonderful. Well, I wish you lots of success.
Thanks.
So, Amit, you with Paytm, Akshamaala, Unnati, you always believed in building strong teams.
Yeah.
My question to you is, what goes into building a strong team?
Honestly, the biggest learning that I've had in all this growth phase of a company has been the whole team building aspect. Not only team building, team managing, because people are at the end of the day what
Correct.
drives the whole thing. And thankfully at Paytm, I also got a 3-year window as an HR head also, apart from the other roles that I was doing as a CFO and other thing, where there's a lot of learning that went into it. I think first thing that I learned was we should build the team bottom up. It can never be built top down. So if you have the lower layers of the team set, then you can get somebody on top. Correct. Or somebody from within the team grows up.
Correct.
That's the ideal way of building.
Correct.
In spite of whatever speed we might need. And I think that works also better, because I see it like this. Today when at Unnati, I have a team, say, of 40-50 people, everybody is visible to me. So I rather have people work directly with me and not create an opaque layers in between where it is not needed. So it's a journey where one should start bottom up, keep building on the right set of people, and every stage of the journey will require a different set of kind of people that are required. Early days you require hustlers, you require people who would sort of quickly change themselves into doing multiple things. That is, generics are more important. As you grow, as you build up, that is where you need specific skill set people who would come in and then take their own time in terms of it. I think these are few things which are the key to sort of my approach to building a team, I would say.
No, they're very, very wise words. So my next question to you is as a startup entrepreneur. You were in a startup when you said Paytm was just 100 people. Now it's so big. You founded Akshamaala, went back to Paytm. And you must have seen lots of other startups.
Yeah.
My question to you is, what are some of the basic mistakes a lot of startup entrepreneurs make?
First thing I would say would be the team itself. People overbuild many times. Most of the times I've seen people overbuild before something is really needed to be done. So it's a balance which one should maintain. You should not dry up so much that you're not able to grow, but you should not also make it so heavy that it starts hurting you. So that is something that is very important. Second, I would say a lot of people, while people want to do entrepreneurship and get into it, they are not aware of all the challenges that which is where there's a lot of wear and tear. You keep going through those multiple cycles, and I call it a daily boom and bust cycle. There are more of busts and very few of the booms that you will see. So one has to be aware of that and live through that. It's not only about your job, it's about your family, it's about everything else. everybody has to be attuned to that. Then only you will reach a
Yeah.
successful this thing. And third, I would say also, a lot of people find it very difficult to change in the face of what is happening on ground. You should always be very agile. Always start with an MVP. Never build something. So there is this story that I always very happily quote, that if you have a small elephant in your house, you should actually take it out, show to the world. It will be cute. People will like it. If they like it, then you feed it more.
Correct.
But feed it outside the house. If you make it too big inside, and if it goes out of your house, then it will break the door.
Correct.
So one should avoid in all aspects of a startup. This is extremely critical as a thought process, that you need to keep things small, agile, and so that it can change fast, and then build upon.
Wonderful. So a few questions for you now personally. Over the years, and thank you for sharing so much of your story with me. Have there been any people who had an influence on your life? And if yes, what have you learned from them?
Obviously, lots of influences,
Yeah.
and from everywhere. I would put in like, instead of putting a single guy as such, that who has obviously everybody with whom I have worked, not only worked in family, everywhere else, there's a lot of influence that has come in. There's a lot of learning that has come in. From people with whom I have worked, people who have reported to me, people whom I have reported to, and it is always contextual in the scheme of things that we are doing, and that is where the whole learning has been built. But definitely, few key things I think is, one, obviously, as I said, while startup requires a lot of effort in terms of time spent and everything else on the business itself, you need to take a break out. And I think this is one learning that came right from my very early days when I was starting my career. A few of my PwC bosses explained to me that the importance, and I think that obviously one learns it as you go along. You don't learn it in the initial days of your life. But I think it's very important to switch off at least for a day, and that is the thing that I very ritually manage, that spend a day off with the kids, with whomsoever you want, with my family, with my wife, so that one day is spent in rejuvenating for the next week. So that, and I think that is something that has helped me in good state, and also made it a longer haul for me, because it's very easy to burn out very fast, and one should never, because results won't come in a few years. You have to be the long haul guy.
You've got to keep on plugging away. Isn't it? Okay, very nice. So, Amit, tell me, what would be 3 words that define Amit?
I would say first would be level-headedness, which is very, very critical, I think, for a lot of scenarios which are really scary, and you go through these scary days every other day. And second would be, I would say cheerfulness. Come what may, there's always a next morning to be coming through. And third would be flexibility. An ability to change my beliefs, my thoughts based on whatever I'm seeing on the ground. And so I think these 3 things would be the most sort of my denominator of what I am.
Well, I can sense a lot of those in my conversations with you.
Thanks.
So, Amit, my last question to you, and this is a question on failure. Most of us don't teach our children that it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
We are always told, by all parents.
All parents.
You have to come first.
Yeah.
You have to be ahead of the queue.
Yeah.
Piche kya kar rahe ho, aage aao, etc. And yet we fail all the time.
Yes.
My question to you is, what are some of your learnings from some of your mistakes or your failures?
Quite a lot of them. As I was saying, the busts are more, so failures are more than the successes any day. Like if it is a better than a 20-80 ratio, I would be like, somebody would be God to do that. So I think some of the biggest failures that I've had was, so for example, one very basic thing, when I failed my first attempt at IIM, when I was doing the CAT thing, and but I think the biggest learning that I've had, and always I've seen is there's always a next day. There's always a next day. There's always something better waiting. If you have the ability to go ahead and grab it and see it. A lot of people, for example, in a professional situation, a lot of people say demonetization is what made Paytm. The reality is we were already doing the same thing for the last 8 to 9 months. The speed at which Vijay reacted to it is what made it. So I think a lot of those failures keep on having in business, in everywhere else. In Akshamaala, the first round, I don't know whether we call it a success or a failure, but the business that we were doing at that point did not grow to the extent that we wanted it to. So in a way, it was a failure. There was a lot of learning, but which we could now plumb into the next sort of business that we are doing. So I think the core thing is there's always a next day. There's always something to take away from any failure and then implement in a better way.
So Amit, thank you very much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you, and I wish Akshamaala and Unnati lots and lots of success.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You podcast. Be sure to visit tbcy.in to join the conversation, access show notes, and discover fantastic bonus content. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Simply search for The Brand Called You. Thank you and see you next week.